So with that, I want to thank everyone again for your interest in learning more about the Smart Great Lakes Initiative and attending this meeting today. My name is Kelly Page, and I'm the CEO of the Great Lakes Observing System. We're very excited to introduce you to this effort and to build new connections and partnerships through this initiative. I know that we're all adjusting to a new normal of working and meeting completely virtually. And I certainly appreciate everyone taking time this afternoon and accommodating the virtual format of this meeting, which we were originally hoping would be an in-person meeting hosted in Chicago. So a little bit's being lost here in translation, but I have confidence that we're still going to be able to get a lot of good engagement and hopefully interest through this virtual format. I really hope that this idea of Smart Great Lakes resonates with you and will continue to inspire you in the weeks and months to come. I also wanted to extend a special thank you to Dean Elena Harkness from the Office of Chicago Metropolitan Water Reclamation Commissioner, Kim Dubuclet. Dean participated in another webinar that we hosted when we first launched the Smart Great Lakes Initiative, and he was instrumental in connecting this effort with Chicago area partners. So we're very thankful to Commissioner Dubuclet's office for their support in building momentum for Smart Great Lakes. As we get started, I'd like to welcome our co-leads for this event and give them a few minutes to introduce themselves and briefly share why they have decided to participate in the Smart Great Lakes Initiative. So I'm just going to go from the top and work my way down. And so I'm going to turn it over right now to Elena Harkness from Current to introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. It's great to be with you. Thanks, Kelly and the team, for convening us. I'm especially sorry we're not all together in Chicago because I would have been so happy to welcome all of you Great Lakes partners. And I know there's a lot of Chicagoans on the line who'd be happy to roll out the carpet too. I want to just say up front how grateful we are to the Chicago Community Trust, which would have been our co-host. They'd offered us space for this event. And they're the principal funder of the project that we'll be sharing about today. I'll save most of my background on Current for the presentation, but we are Chicago's water innovation cluster, and we're focused on building a strong blue economy here in Chicago and in the state of Illinois. And one of the ways we do that is by building and helping to grow partnerships like this one. And we have a special interest in developing water quality monitoring technologies. And the project I'll be talking about today is H2 Now Chicago, and it's a Chicago River monitoring project. But we're really excited to talk more about the potential of connecting to a broader Great Lakes monitoring effort, and just really happy to be here and excited to learn with all of you.
Thank you. All right, next is Brian with the Cleveland Water Alliance.
Thank you, Kelly, and good afternoon to everyone, or if you're from overseas, which I think I see a couple people on here from one of our partners in Israel. Good evening. So yeah, we're pleased to be supporting our partners at the Great Lakes Observing System, and also with our partners who are on both sides of the border, and that's Mark Fisher from the Council of the Great Lakes Region. I hope that everybody takes this next 2 hours to learn a little bit more, not only about the Smart Great Lakes but also about all of our organizations that are all trying to row in the same direction and making the whole Great Lakes region smarter and more innovative and getting us through this somewhat tough time in a positive way. I'll tell you all about the Cleveland Water Alliance and some of our smart and connected system work when we get into the conversation and the presentations a little later. But I would just say that the Cleveland Water Alliance has been upfront with smart and connected systems for quite a while, starting with Smart Lake Erie. We've been pleased with the more broader leadership that the Great Lakes Observing System and its partners, primarily as NOAA's IUS program, have come and really tried to lead this nationally. And it's good to not be the only person in DC making those hill visits, and it's good to bump into Kelly. So with that, we're just pleased that you're here. We hope you learn a lot. Don't be afraid to ask questions. And thank you, and I'll turn it back over to Kelly.
Thank you, Brian. And last but not least is Mark Fisher with the Council of the Great Lakes Region. Mark? he muted?
Hey, my apologies.
Oh.
Thanks, Kelly. Still getting used to Zoom, clearly. I want to thank everybody for participating in today's call. As Brian and Elena and Kelly had said, this is a very exciting opportunity for us as organizations. Obviously, we wanted to do this meeting in Chicago to follow up on a meeting we hosted a number of months ago in Toronto to really start a conversation around how we think about the Great Lakes from a monitoring and reporting standpoint. And something that I often say in my different conversations throughout the region is that, for the size and importance of the Great Lakes to both countries, is probably the least censored body of fresh water in the world, at least in terms of a real-time monitoring standpoint and monitoring up to date and modern technology. And so, the reason why we're excited about this initiative is that it gives us an opportunity to not only talk about the policies and the protocols that go behind supporting smart Great Lakes and the types of technologies and investments that have to happen, but it also allows us to talk about the future of science and innovation in the region and how do we use data, on a lake by lake or even on a regional basis to really give us new insights and new knowledge about what's happening not only in the lakes, but also how our lakes are being impacted by what's happening on our lands, from our cities to our farms. And really just being smarter about how we make decisions and trying to support economic growth, but also sustainability in the Great Lakes region. So the council is very pleased to be part of this initiative and to add its voice where it can. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. So I believe before we get too much further into things, we're going to pause briefly and take a poll. So if I think it's Savannah can pop that up for us. Thank you. Let's find out who's attending the meeting today by identifying the industry in which you work. So please go ahead and take that poll. All right. What's our participation rate like, guys? Okay, the poll's ended. And now we can see the results. So it looks like a pretty even split between research and academia and other in terms of the largest groups of folks, but we have a nice mix here, and that's terrific. So thank you everyone for joining us today, and it's good to see a diverse range of interests and industries being represented. That's awesome. All right, so I think I'm gonna go ahead and move on. Do I close the poll? I'm still seeing it. I don't know. Is everyone seeing it still?
No, you closed it.
Oh, it's closed. Okay. All right. So in order to explain the origins of Smart Great Lakes, I'd like to start first with some brief background on GLOS. The Great Lakes Observing System, or GLOS, is a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and we were established to support data collection, data management, and data sharing in the Great Lakes. We serve as one of 11 regional associations of the U.S. Integrated Ocean Observing System, or IOOS program. In 2009, legislation was passed, the ICOOS Act, which formally established the IOOS program, and it's administered by NOAA, but governed by an interagency committee. Essentially all the federal agencies you see represented on the logos below, as well as many others who have oversight and coordination responsibilities for observing systems across the country. And this program was established essentially with the notion that, all of these different federal agencies are doing monitoring in the oceans and coasts and Great Lakes, and shouldn't they be coordinated in the activities that they're doing, and sharing that data with one another, and also, making sure that it's publicly available so that we can get the most use and most leverage out of that information. And our role as a regional association of this federal program is to ensure that our binational regional data partners are able to coordinate and share data with stakeholders following the same quality and technical standards that these U.S. federal agencies also follow. GLOS was originally established by the Great Lakes Commission through a series of early planning grants from NOAA, and we became a standalone 501c3 in 2008. Since about 2010, our base funding from the IU's program has averaged around $1.5 million per year, which is a pretty significant amount for a small nonprofit that has historically supported between 1 and 3 staff. This year, we managed to pass the $2 million funding mark from IU's, which was a big accomplishment for the Great Lakes region. And over time, we've been obviously lucky enough to find other grants and opportunities to supplement our base capacity. But unfortunately, as you can imagine, attempting to sustain and support various observing assets like buoys and gliders across the entire Great Lakes region is a pretty costly aspect of our mission. Short-term increases to our budget, again, while noteworthy and appreciated, do not fully address the cost to maintain and expand these monitoring systems. So we're continually balancing attention in our budget between supporting core observations, filling critical monitoring gaps, and modernizing processes and technologies that can help data collection and sharing. Also, over time, GLOS has been at the front line of evolving trends as our society becomes more influenced by advances in technology and improved access to data. So we've seen a greater demand for more complex and cross-disciplinary data analysis from policymakers and management agencies. And we've also observed emerging trends in the way people prefer to interact with and consume data. More and more things need to be mobile friendly. People are making decisions in near real time. And so with that history as context, about 2 years ago, we set out on a strategic planning process to evaluate how well we were executing our mission and consider ways that we could improve our approach and maximize our efficiency and our effectiveness. And the results of all that work was our new strategic plan, which you can access from our website and is available online. I really encourage everyone to read it. Today's not the day to talk in detail about our strategic plan, but in summary, we're obviously committed to the main pillars of our mission, supporting data collection, data management, and data delivery in the Great Lakes. But we're shifting the perspective that we approach these pillars, looking at the mission more through a service model lens. Also, as part of the IU's program, GLOS provides a data management infrastructure that's certified through the federal government and that can transform and deliver data and information to users. So as a result of the strategic planning process, we're also working on updating and enhancing our back-end technology stack with the goal of developing a flexible and scalable IT platform that will be more responsive to the complex and changing needs of our stakeholders. The IT platform will power supporting applications, ingest and disseminate content through scalable application programming interfaces or APIs, and serve as a comprehensive window of available data in the Great Lakes region. We're making these changes because we see it as our best way to support our new vision for what we're calling Smart Great Lakes. A couple of years ago, I was participating as a judge in the Internet of H2O event led by the Cleveland Water Alliance. And for part of the event, we had a discussion about what would it take to make Lake Erie smart, the same way people talk about making cities, homes, and even appliances smart and connected. And that discussion really resonated with me, especially as I did parts of my jobs like advocating for the IU's budget on Capitol Hill, or looking for other funding opportunities to help grow capacity for our partners. And in my conversations, I could tell that there was an opportunity to advance Great Lakes management priorities by taking advantage of this growing interest in emerging trends around technology. Through our strategic planning process at GLOS, we also recognize that there are many other organizations across the region that had an interest in things like increased monitoring, data aggregation, and developing information products. But really more coordination was needed to make sure that we were all leveraging our partnerships effectively. And frankly, more funding was needed in order to fully realize the potential that all these advancing technologies had to offer the natural resource management sector. And that's when I started to reflect on a time when the region's partners came together to develop a common strategy for restoring and protecting the Great Lakes, which some of you may be familiar with, the Great Lakes Regional Collaboration Strategy, which was the precursor to the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative, or GLRI. I know that's a lot of acronyms, so bear with me. But I thought, what if a common strategy for advancing science and technology in the Great Lakes existed the same way that our region came together around restoration and protection? Are there other organizations that would want to partner with us and collectively promote and advocate for increased investment in things like improved monitoring, open data, technology innovations, all these different things that could support Great Lakes management and policy? And so that's really where the vision for Smart Great Lakes came to be, which in simple terms, seeks to advance technology applications that improve our understanding, management, and use of the Great Lakes. Now, hopefully it's obvious why GLOS would be motivated to support such a vision, especially given the mission of our organization. But really, Smart Great Lakes can and should be bigger than just GLOS. We see that a coalition of partners should be organized to lead and develop a collaborative strategy for Smart Great Lakes. Through Smart Great Lakes initiative, we can organize the region's technology ecosystem and partners around common policy goals to help improve monitoring, advance data management and analysis, and spur technology innovation. There are a variety of different potential outcomes, and I have some ideas of some here. Things like supporting the various efforts that exist to develop evaluation metrics around Great Lakes policy. Supporting not just, the typical academic and government contributions to developing information products, but also bringing in private, tribal, citizen science initiatives where they can contribute to this data to information pipeline. Adopting community developed best practices. So obviously that's something, that GLOS feels a lot of connection to as well. I think, something that's really just, we haven't even scratched the surface of potential here, but advancing innovation in science, information technology, and analytics. And then finally, what I think is probably most critical is, advocating for additional investment in things like infrastructure, research, and emerging technologies. And I'm sure that there are probably many more outcomes that can be explored as this network of partners. So this meeting today is really intended to help engage and grow the consortium of partners in the Smart Great Lakes Initiative. And so I hope throughout this webinar you'll feel inspired. And I really want you to consider these questions as you listen and learn more this afternoon. So, does this idea of Smart Great Lakes resonate with you? Do you feel that there are opportunities for your organization to benefit under this framework? Maybe specific projects or programs that you feel can be helped through additional coordination, support, or just simply to elevate the profile of what you're doing. And then would you consider participating in a more committed way, either on a leadership, steering, or writing committee moving forward? And so with that, that's the introduction. So I think I'll pause and see if anyone has any questions for me. And I think I'm not able to open the chat box. So maybe Katie or someone can help me if there's any questions.
Yep, so the first one, this is from Peter Nicholson at Foresight Design. So speaking of GLRI, is there any active coordination between this and HOW and/or the Great Lakes St. Lawrence Cities Initiative?
Yeah, so we have reached out to Laura Rubin at Healing Our Waters and have had some early conversations about this. I think there's an obvious role for groups like that to play in helping advance this effort. And so we've reached out to a variety of different organizations to see how we can coordinate this with the work that they're doing, or if there's opportunity for mutual benefit by aligning our activities.
I think that's it for now.
Okay, great. Well, feel free to continue to add questions to the chat box. And I believe we have another poll just to get everyone interested or kind of thinking about these questions that I posed. So does the idea of Smart Great Lakes resonate with you is what I'd like to know. All right, it looks like the majority of folks have voted, and it's looking pretty good. Oh, there we go. All right, so it looks like overwhelmingly 88% of those of you who responded say yes, the idea does resonate with you. Well, that's a relief because we're going to spend, the rest of the afternoon talking about it. So I'm glad that you're interested. And we don't have any no's, so that's great. Thank you, everyone. I'm glad that this idea has piqued your interest, and we're excited to talk some more. Now, I think I did maybe see another question come in.
Yes, George Burgandy from Current was asking, does making the Great Lakes smart mean you're looking for solutions that can only be applied within the physical lakes themselves, or does it encompass nearby cities or entire watersheds, etc.?
Okay, yeah, I think that, we're open to all ideas and all solutions. It's a pretty broad umbrella, and it's going to be really difficult to I think holistically accomplish this notion of smart Great Lakes. So whether we're talking about, monitoring or information solutions that are happening, upland in the watershed, if that's addressing a major management issue, then I think that, is appropriately a part of, this effort and this initiative. It's not limited to just activities happening in the lakes themselves. I see there's a little bit of chatter. I'm not sure how we're doing on time.
And Kelly, it's Mark here. I can just add to that, I think, as another great example.
Sure.
So I think the group looking at the watersheds, we all have a collective interest, but also individual interest. So one of the things, for example, that the Council of the Great Lakes Region is doing, and why we're also interested in this conversation, is that a year ago, this challenge run by the U.S. Department of inaugural smart regions that NIST and the Department of Commerce were looking at as under the Global City Teams Challenge. And one of the pilots that we're actually doing is with the city of Defiance in the upper portion of the Maumee watershed, and looking at how we work with farmers and smart technology when you look at nutrient runoff. And as everyone knows, a significant amount of nutrients come down through the Maumee into Lake Erie, and obviously create, to a large extent, the algae problems that we're seeing in Lake Erie. We're certainly a firm believer that there has to be a very deep sort of land-to-lake relationship, our cities and our waters. And so, I think to answer George's question, as we develop this further, we'll see some of those connections become more obvious, as the initiative develops.
Great, thank you, Mark. So in the interest of time, I'm going to turn it over now to Tim Kearns, who's the CIO at Great Lakes Observing System, and we'll be sure to capture additional questions that come in the chat and answer them in a document after the webinar. So Tim, I'm going to hand it over to you now.
Okay, thanks, Kelly. Hopefully everyone can see my screen. All good? All right, well, thanks everyone for being here today. It's great that we've got such a fantastic turnout. As Kelly said, I'm helping lead the next phase of technology and platform development at GLOS. But it's not just serving GLOS, it's really serving the public, and it's serving the whole Great Lakes region. That's the entire goal of this. And what excites us, I think, most about this is that we feel like we have a really good opportunity in front of us, not because of technology development and availability and some of these things I'm going to talk about, but the community that's really rallying around the Great Lakes right now, and with the number of people that are interested by attending this meeting today. And we had a similar meeting in Toronto a few months ago with a similar type of interest and level of participation. So binational, centered around community, centered around technology as well. And like I said, gives us a real opportunity to do something amazing that surpasses the vision and the goals of GLOS. As Kelly said, yes, we're a relatively small nonprofit organization, but we've got a massive vision and big ideas. So that's great. One of the things, I'm just curious, have you heard of the term data lake? And you may have. It's generally accepted as it's a large repository of structured and unstructured data for processing, analysis, and algorithms that other people can access. It's a lot of data together, and we don't have a data lake. That's not what we have here. What we have, and this is just a photo. It's not a real data lake. This is actually the view from the offices of GLOS in Ann Arbor. What we actually have are data islands, and data islands they're disconnected silos or data warehouses, whatever term you want to call it, but it's disparate data scattered among different organizations, different agencies, different collections of data. What that leads to is something called data dispersion. And data dispersion is what we have in the Great Lakes. And we're not alone in this, but we certainly have this in the Great Lakes. It's not a bad thing that everyone's collecting data. In fact, it's great that we've got lots of people collecting data, but it limits our ability to collect, to aggregate and process, analyze, and come up with results from this aggregate of data when the data is dispersed in different silos. So one of the goals that we have is to help bring this together. Not necessarily all of the data. GLOS is not coming for your data or any other organization's data. We might be coming for your metadata, because what we want to do, the ultimate goal here, is to make data more discoverable, make it more accessible, and make the results of that and make the information from that available. So some of the reasons, some of the, I guess, trends, I guess, that are allowing us to do this or making it more easy for us to do this. Well, the first one is the sheer number of devices in the region is growing. We have, you know, literally the potential to deploy hundreds, if not thousands of devices. We're moving away from a paradigm where devices cost $75,000, $100,000 or $50,000, whatever the cost is, to on the order of $500 or $5,000. We're working with a company where you can buy their products just off their website, add it to your shopping buggy, click, go, put your credit card in, how many would you like, and it gets delivered to your door in 2 days. I mean, that's the kind of model that we have the potential in front of us here to really change the way data is collected and shared within the Great Lakes. Collecting data is only one piece of it. So having access to these amazing devices at low cost is great, but the ease of use has to go along with it. And that's the other thing that's changing. That's another big trend that we're seeing, not just in our segment, not just in our community, but in other communities where it's super easy. I mean, a backyard drone is probably the greatest example of this. 10 years ago, where these were still called AUVs and not drones, as people tend to call them now, you know, it was really complicated. It was really limited to experts and hobbyists. Now you can just buy one on Amazon, right? It comes with an app on your smartphone, you throw it in the air, and away you go. It's not out of the realm of possibilities to think that you couldn't just buy a little tiny buoy or some device that gets mounted on your raft or your dock or your personal watercraft or whatever it is, and you can be collecting data in the Great Lakes super easily. Another big trend that's happening is the cost. I already mentioned this. The cost is coming down. So across the board, we're able to reduce the cost of all of these. You can get a lot more devices collecting data in the Great Lakes. And then the biggest trend probably that we're going to see in the next couple of years still to come is something called smart devices. And that's devices that can not only talk to each other, but can talk to our smartphones, our systems a whole lot easier. They can do processing by themselves to convert that data in real time or near real time and send the results only, especially devices that are capturing large information, whether it's audio or video. Maybe we're only interested in the relevant and contextual portions of that data. Maybe it's smaller data sets that are collected and it can send the full data stream. That's awesome too. But we're definitely moving to a trend of smart devices. And I'm not, you know, I mean, you can think of smart devices like the refrigerator in your home telling you that you've run out of milk and it's time to go to the store, which we're not allowed to get more milk. But if we could, that's what you've got, a smart device in your home. Now, transpose that to smart devices in the water, collecting data, and that's going to be phenomenal for what we're trying to do here in the Great Lakes. All of this is great. And it's awesome, and I've been an advocate for many, many years of the more devices that we have collecting, the more data, the better off we'll be. However, it does lead to a problem, and this problem is that the gap between the amount of data that we have available to us versus our human capacity for processing and crunching all of that data, that gap is growing. So this actually is going to force us into another paradigm of automated processing, augmented intelligence, artificial intelligence, machine learning, a lot of these technologies that are coming up in other vectors of our lives, but we're not really taking advantage of them yet in the Great Lakes area for our traditional applications as it relates to model and observation technology. Not all of this once again just points to opportunities for us. So when we look at some of the things that are happening outside of, let's say, the marine community, we're looking at things, internet. I don't know if you've heard of the fourth industrial revolution, but the fourth industrial revolution is following on like these massive, I guess, times in our industrial lives, I guess, right? But this one, the Industrial Revolution 4.0, what we're in right now, this is automated processing, machine learning, bringing together technology so that they can communicate from technology to technology without humans involved. Now a subset of that is something called Internet 4.0. We're currently in Internet 3.0, but Internet 4.0 is where we move from a paradigm where we access Internet on demand to a paradigm where the Internet is around us all of the time. It becomes ubiquitous, not just for us, but for our devices as well. So bringing these two together, and when you combine that with technologies like cloud, edge, fog, machine learning, artificial intelligence, all this amazing stuff, you got a recipe that's ripe for amazing development in the Great Lakes region. So I'll just give you a couple of examples here. Imagine a scenario where we have hundreds of devices working together real time to collect and process data in the Great Lakes about, let's say, harmful algae blooms, right? Which I think Mark already mentioned, it is, plagues us every summer, especially in Lake Erie. And there's this lag of the amount of data that we can collect, and then how we can turn that into information that's meaningful. So that's just one scenario. And then not only is it collecting and processing this data, but it's sending the results to you in real time. So here you are on a Sunday morning, and you're reading the news, or you're checking up on what's going on with COVID-19, and boom, you get an alert on your smartphone that says, hey, because you're a water treatment manager, I forgot to mention that, the toxicity levels in Lake Erie or in an area that you're interested in have exceeded some acceptable threshold, and you need to put the necessary processes in place to make the water safe and secure for your citizens. So this is a direct benefit to humans that are consuming water, right, because of additional sensors and smart sensors that we've got in the Great Lakes. And in this scenario here, we've got a person who's having a cigarette while they're doing it. Okay, so here's another scenario where we've got sensors that are, this is the Soo Locks, right? And there's potentially hundreds of devices that are measuring water pressure, infrastructure, integrity on the whole ecosystem around the Soo Locks here that are holding back Lake Superior, right? And making sure that the rest of the Great Lakes don't get flooded by this water being held back. So there's just another light example of sensors that can work together to tell us information about what's happening in a marine environment. Here's one of these examples I gave you. This is from a company called So Far Oceans. These people make a device, selling it just off their website. It's $5,000, relatively inexpensive. And it's measuring many of the same properties that a larger buoy does. And I'm not discounting the value of larger buoys. It's just, this is presenting another option for people to collect data that's relatively easy to access, relatively low cost, and can achieve some of the similar results. And same deal, this is able to transmit real-time information back to our systems, not just humans, but back to our systems to process the data and get it in the hands of people who need it fast. Here's some subsurface floating robotics technology. This is in tandem with swarm technology, another opportunity you may be familiar with. This is where devices can work together to communicate results. So sometimes just understanding what's going on at one location isn't enough, but when you combine that with hundreds or dozens of devices in the same region, it can paint you a picture of what's happening for that body of water on a slightly larger scale. All of these technologies working together, working independently, are just great technologies. It's not until they actually work together and have some societal benefit that they become smart. So by themselves, awesome, maybe we'll call them smart, but when you put it into the context of an ecosystem working together, that's really what drives the technology side of the Smart Great Lakes Initiative. So Kelly mentioned this already. We're working to organize a technology ecosystem to help us better understand, monitor the environmental conditions in the Great Lakes so that we can get better information faster and more timely and in context. So what are we doing about it to support that? Well, we're building a technology platform. And it's meant to support smart devices. It's meant to drive information and ultimately actionable intelligence. And that previous example where Brenda was smoking a cigarette on a Sunday morning and she got that alert, I mean, it's really that actionable intelligence that would allow her to make a change in her downstream systems based on information that she got that's going to have some benefit to the people that are, in that case, consuming drinking water. So our goal here is to help close that gap between lake data and ultimately knowledge. And so if you think about that graphic I showed earlier, where we had tons of data coming in, or the idea of tons of data coming in and the inability of humans to process it all. So if we can provide a platform to make that a lot easier and close that gap, that's going to help. Obviously, that's the goal here. That's one of the goals. So we're building a new platform. It's called SGLi. And there's a few major tenets we're going for this in this new platform. Well, for one, it's got to be centered. It's an information. It's a data and information-centric paradigm. So this whole notion of converting data from from data into actionable intelligence, but through the conversion of information. Couple of hard lines for us. It's got to have a great user experience. It's got to be easy to use. Like I said, it's got to be driven by information. But then really on the back end, and this is what we're focusing on, this is what we've started on, we want to have this pipeline of observation data, model data, and IoT or streaming data that's coming in from devices through a tunneling platform to make it easy to access. So the user experience or the user interface may not necessarily be through Gloss. It may be through an app that you develop on your own, or you work with some other technology partner, and you develop an app that sits on top of or takes advantage of the SGLi platform behind the scenes. So a very API-driven platform, both on the ingestion side of data coming in to SGLi, but also on the output side of data going out. Abstract, this is what I call my architecture diagram, right? Half marketing, half architecture. So some major pillars here, and if you're looking at it, we're going from left to right. So we've got a variety of input devices on the left. We've got maybe vessels, smart devices, other systems that are in place, robotics, other systems that could feed into the Gloss platform, subsurface systems, that feed this content in. A bunch of machinations happen, we process the data, or not. Maybe we just start as raw data, maybe we do some initial post-processing. We make that available through a variety of interfaces, and these could be APIs, like as I mentioned, to allow enabling technologies or apps and services to consume that data and then do something else with it, or push it out as additional information or additional web or map or feature services. But ultimately, we do want to make that data available for consumption. So maybe it's consumption through services, maybe it's through download. In fact, if you're doing additional analysis or research on it, awesome. Whatever your application is, we want to make it available to you. So we did do a prototype. We feel like we're fairly confident, I guess, that yes, we can make this work. In 2019, we ran a prototype. It was relatively lightweight. The whole goal of that prototype was, can we put some devices in the water? Can we take their data through streaming or pseudo streaming? Because in the end, we had to fake it a little bit to make it, and bring that data into an automated platform in the cloud, and in turn, automatically push that data out to smartphones so people could be notified of some thresholds and alerts that may need to happen. Yes, that worked. Now we took those we took those results and turned them into requirements. We went through a process with a variety of different partners and technology companies to come up with a requirements document. We're just in the process now. We're very close to awarding this platform development to one of our technology partners. And we're going to ultimately have a goal here of serving thousands of users with hundreds or thousands of devices in a platform to convert data to information in the Great Lakes. Our whole goal here is to have a connected technology ecosystem to support the Smart Great Lakes Initiative. That is the goal of the platform. And we're looking forward, really, for ideas, partners, whether they're technology partners or ideas, or people who are bringing concept and policy and other phenomenal opportunity, really, to the table. That's where we are today. So with that, I'll turn it back over to, I don't know if I'm turning it back over to Kelly or if I'm passing it off to the next host, Elena from Current.
I'll take it for now. Thank you.
Okay,
Tim.
thanks, Kelly.
So we are running a little bit over on time, and that's probably my fault from the beginning. So I think we're gonna not answer questions in the chat just this moment. If we're able to get to them later, we'll come back to them. We do have another quick poll though. So in the next 3 years, do you as your organization plan to adopt smart technologies to improve the flow of data to information? I mean, this could be, you know, wishful thinking. And we'll make sure that if we can't answer the questions in the chat, either, you know, by typing a message back to you, at the very least, we'll capture all the questions, answer them in a Q&A after the fact and make it available online to everyone. All right, it looks like a few more votes are trickling in. Is that, okay, I think we're pretty much stopped now. So, looks like yes, the majority of folks on who answered the poll are planning on adopting smart technologies, so that's terrific. And I'm really glad that we were able to get you engaged on this webinar, and so we'll definitely make sure to follow up with folks online and including those who would like some more information. So that's awesome. Thanks everyone for answering that poll. And so again, in the interest of time, just to help us catch up a bit, I'm just gonna quickly move on now to hear more from Elena with Current about the H2 Now project, which is maybe a little bit more of a specific example of the types of relevant projects that can be a part of the Smart Great Lakes Initiative. I believe you're muted. There you go. All right.
All right. Great. We're real Zoom pros at this point. Great. I'll try to catch us up a little bit in time here. But I just want to start out by acknowledging what an important time this is to be thinking about the role that connectedness and specifically information technology is playing as sort of a just an access point for all of us. We've really been thinking a lot about connectivity and access and the role that digital information is playing right now as kind of a critical learning tool and workforce tool, and just thinking about the inequitable access that we all sort of still have to technology. So just want to acknowledge up front that sort of the privilege that we have to sit here on this call and be part of this work and continuing to move it forward. And I'm so energized by the presentations I've already heard and the chance to participate and be part of this collaboration, because I think there's a lot of work we can do to lay the track and to build these connected technology platforms so that when we are back in a world where we can be connected to the physical environment in something that looks more like our regular way, if not totally back to normal, we'll just be in a better place to understand, have better situational awareness about that, and also just be able to sort of interact with our environment in smarter and more effective ways. So I'm really excited about that. I'm so grateful to be here. And I'm thrilled that so many of our partners are on this call today. So Current, just to give you a bit of an overview, we are, hang on one second. We are Chicago and Illinois' water innovation hub or water cluster. So our mission is really focused on the economy in Illinois and thinking about how we can grow a water-based economy in our region that also helps us drive solutions to the world's water challenges. So we're thinking a lot about what we kind of call our backyard issues. These are our freshwater, Great Lakes and rivers, and Mississippi watershed. We're thinking a lot about the issues that are sort of unique to Chicago and to our region, but we also believe that Chicago and Illinois have a lot of really important building blocks that set us up to be generating solutions to the world's water challenges. We're a cross-sector connector, so we really work by convening stakeholders, many of them on the phone today or on the line today, and bringing them together to try to accelerate tech innovation in a number of different ways. And one of the ways we do that is through our technology pilots, which I'll talk more about in a second. But just to give you a snapshot of our blue economy, this is the way we broadly, it's kind of a working sketch, the way we think about breaking down the blue economy for our region. So we think a lot about the demand side, and of course everybody up on this top side of the diagram here, we know there's a lot of innovation coming from these places too. Certainly there's innovation coming out of our utilities and out of large food and beverage companies, out of consulting engineering, but in general, these are the folks that are sort of demanding. They're looking for innovative technology. They're looking to deploy it to make their businesses smarter and more effective. And on the bottom are our partners that we think of broadly as being on the supply side of innovative technology. So it's our university and research centers, entrepreneurs, technology innovators that have new solutions, the investors that really care a lot about that pipeline and deal flow of portfolio innovators, and the incubators that are kind of working to build solutions and scale those companies. And so this is the broad picture of stakeholders that we work with and try to convene. We try to understand what their needs are and how to solve them more effectively and efficiently. So when we think about the pillars of building an effective blue economy and water cluster, there are 5 right now that we think of as really critical. And today I'm just going to focus on pillar 1, which is actually deploying technology to solve local and regional water needs. So this is the idea that we can, really demonstrate at home and in our backyard the ways that technologies can both solve our environmental challenges in water, but also build real solutions that are driving commercialization and building companies that create jobs and drive revenue. The project I want to talk to you about today is our largest pilot project. It's called H2 Now Chicago, and its long subtitle is the first near real-time water quality monitoring project in the US to measure microbial pollutants. So we have all those caveats because we are serious about being careful about detail and the way that we describe what the sort of innovations are in this work. So broadly, the problem that we're trying to solve, this is the picture of the Chicago River, probably not in April given the length of the sleeves on these folks, but if any of you have ever kayaked on the Chicago River more than once, you'll know that conditions can change a lot from day to day. Our Chicago River is making real strides. The quality of the river in general is improving over time, but there are days that feel better and worse to be in the river, sort of depending on what's been going on in the environment, depending on rainfall, depending on the weather. All sorts of variables affect what kind of day it is to kayak in Chicago. So if you're a Chicagoan or have ever been to Chicago, you know that there's only so many great kayaking days that we get in the spring through the fall. So you really want to be able to take advantage of those. So in the world we have today, the best you could do if you really want to know if it's a great day to kayak is to go out into the water, take a sample, have that sample processed in a lab, and then 1 to 2 days later, you'll get the answer to your question, is today a great day to kayak? Not very useful because by then the weekend is over and you can't kayak anymore or the weather has changed. So for us in Chicago, the idea of having near real-time information about the quality of the Chicago River is actually really important and useful. So H2 Now Chicago is our project to attempt to address just that and help move us a little bit closer to a future of real-time water quality monitoring and active information about this river. The QR code on your screen, if you hold up your phone to that, it'll take you straight to the H2 Now Chicago static webpage where when this webinar is over, you can go a lot deeper and learn much more about the project. But I'm going to walk you through some of the kind of key goals and features today. So near real-time information about the microbial quality of the Chicago River. I believe that we had a question in the chat about why does this matter? Why would we care about real-time information of lakes, of our rivers in this case? And in this case, we care for a number of different reasons, but one is to drive that recreational decision-making and hopefully increase it over time. There's a really big kind of framework plan in Chicago to make our rivers more useful, more actionable, and more productive. And so one of the reasons to get real-time information is to allow that information or those decisions to be informed by better information. It's important that the public knows about that, so education and engagement is an important goal of this project. And there's also a scientific observation component that's really critical for us. We're trying to learn something about the way river quality is changing in response to conditions and events like CSOs, which for those of you who don't know what those are, combined sewer overflows. It's a moment if you have a combined water and sewer system where our system is overwhelmed and there's overflow into the river. And so right now there are systems in place. MWRD monitors this, our large storm and wastewater utility. The Friends of the Chicago River also monitors this. So you can sign up for these point-in-time action alerts to understand when water overflow is happening. And that's important, but it's not the only story. The flow of the river is significant, and there's lots of other factors that impact the quality. So we're trying to understand and observe how this quality is changing in real time. And finally, we have this goal of evaluating some really interesting novel technologies to understand how well they're working for real-time microbial water quality assessments. So I'll share more about those in a minute. Oops. This is the framework plan. Again, back to the why does this matter question. We're really fortunate in Chicago to have a terrific framework plan for our rivers. And this came out several years back and set 2020 and 2030 goals for our river that really put it in a framework that Current certainly appreciates being kind of very focused on this intersection of economy and environment and building an economy based on technologies and solutions that will actually solve environmental problems and build towards a stronger environmental future. But the Great Rivers Plan laid out goals that were common to the entire region. So it was a very participatory plan, lots of stakeholders engaged. And one of the 2020 goals for making our rivers sort of more useful and productive and livable was to have real-time water quality for all the reasons we just discussed. Informs action, helps make them more productive. And so when this framework plan came out, Current, as a organization focused on technology and innovation and brokering lots of partnerships to demonstrate pilots, said, we'll pick that one off. This would be a good one for us to help this community and this consortium achieve together. We're also keeping an eye on the relevance to this project globally. Current keeps a close tab on the SDG goals. These are the UN Sustainable Development Goals. So when we think about where we're going towards 2030, these very broad goals of 6, 11, and 14, all of these are relevant to this project and to the river. And of course, there's this binational collaboration that Tim was talking about at the beginning. For us, this is also a global collaborative opportunity because there are so many riverfront communities all over the world, river and lakefront cities that are interested in water quality monitoring and that are, I think the potential for scaling this is really definitely global. And we've had lots of interest from other global partners, including 2 of our technology partners who I know are on the line today. So I just want to situate all of this in a global framework around how water quality is really mattering, not only here in the US, but to the world. All right, so the specifics of our project, for those of you that know the Chicago River system well, we have 3 main branches that are important to kind of observe and track independently because the river quality and water quality fluctuates between them. So we have the main stem, that's the one that all the architecture cruises start from. It's the one that those kayakers run on. It's the main stem that goes through the loop of Chicago. The north branch goes north, the south branch goes south. And there's an important equity story about the branches that we think it's really important to tell as well. So not only does the water quality fluctuate for many different reasons, there's heavier industrial uses along certain portions of the river. There's ecological reasons and engineering reasons that the river changes along its course. But also for those of you who know Chicago well, the socioeconomic makeup of our city is very, it's overlaid on top of space in a really important way. So our communities on the south and west sides of the city tend to be poor. They tend to be communities of color. And so for us, understanding how to really improve the quality of the river across all 3 branches and improve its accessibility as an economic development asset, as a recreational and public health asset, That's really important to us. It's really important to that Great River Chicago framework. And so I just want to situate you. These large dots are extremely approximate locations where we have our water quality monitoring probes. And that's by design. We really want to be keeping tabs on the entire river system, or as close to an approximation of that as we can, for those important equity reasons. So this is the high level of all of the technology that's a part of the H2 Now Chicago collaboration. It's really important to call out that, again, this is a global technology partnership. It's not just companies that were grown in Chicago and in Illinois. Our partners from IOSite are Israeli, and I think Guy is on this call today. I think I saw him. I believe Rob is on the line from Proteus Instruments in the UK. That's the company that's making the probe that we are installing in the river that has the sensors that I'll be talking about later. Really important piece of technology. Ayeka, another important Israeli partner. Green Diamond, Esri, Comcast, all involved in different ways in communicating and sharing the data and analyzing the data. And then Tecta PDS, a Canadian company that's helping us actually validate the samples. It's a lab in a box, so it helps us understand whether the samples that we're taking in real time are correlating to the information that the probe's telling us. So it's really a global partnership. We're very excited about that. I'm excited to share innovations wherever we find them as we bring them into the project. So, Fecal coliform. This is the poop diversion. Sorry about this. I'll keep it short. But why we're measuring fecal coliform, it's a group of microorganisms that are indicator organisms. And they're important to us because they can tell us, in general, how likely other pathogens might be present in the waterway. So we can measure them. There's other indicator microorganisms that you might be familiar with, like E. coli. But it's really important for us to look at this class of microorganisms because it's a pretty good proxy for other things that might be in the river. It's also valuable to us because our regulatory body, the Illinois EPA, has very important primary contact standards for the river. And so we want to always, this is what MWRD and other city agencies were kind of looking at how well we're doing towards meeting that primary contact standard. And that is one way of kind of assessing a threshold level of water quality for the river system, and that is also based on fecal coliform measurements. So when we were looking around at what should we track if we're thinking about tracking water quality, and all of you know there's many ways to do that, this is where we landed, and that's why we did. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly, and we can come back to the technology just because there's a lot here, and I know we need to save time, but in general, sensing and testing technologies that we were looking for three important features: accuracy, range, and speed. All of that important because we're trying to get really close to real-time estimates of these microbial levels, and it's based on all these other fluctuating variables in the river. And so accuracy, range, and speed are the three things that we were looking for when we did our technology assessment to come up with this sort of tech stack for H2 Now Chicago. The communication technologies, same things you're looking for in communication technology at home: reliability, the ability to transmit data in complex urban environments. We're testing a novel technology from our partners at Comcast, and really grateful for their support in testing a low power wide area network that's supplemented by cellular. So that's really important for us because it allows us to transmit data in dense urban environments with lots of buildings that otherwise can kind of make that a challenge. So we're testing not only the water quality monitoring technology, but there's actually a piece of information technology that we're testing in this pilot setting. We're really excited about that, and we're grateful for Comcast support to make that possible. Our partners on the data analysis and user experience, this is really critical for us because as Tim laid out so well, data's great, information better, and actionable information best. So we are really looking to design the outputs of all of this data in ways that can be useful for a range of different stakeholders. So we're looking for downloadable data in raw form or close to raw form to be available for the research community and people who may want to transform that data, merge it with other data sets. So we're looking to get as close to that raw material as possible available to certain users. And then there are other users that are just going to be looking for as close to a point in time, how's the river doing today sort of roll up. And so we're really looking for visualization solutions that help us meet the needs of all those different audiences. So what do we know so far? We launched this project in 2019, and we were in the field, up and running with the probes all through 2019, and we learned quite a bit about the technology setup. There were some really funny blooper moments, just learning to sort of work with the tech, deal with all the different variables, and also put together the sort of human side of this. So putting together cadres of volunteer samplers, helping to sort of get out there and come up with really interesting ways of sampling and collecting those water samples. So those are all stories for another time. But we've learned a lot, and we are at a place where we are confident that we're able to move to rolling out this data live to the public. This was our anticipated 2019 this was our 2019 timeline rather. So we started it in April 2019 and got to a point in September 2019 where we had actually unveiled the static website and importantly validated the data with our scientific leadership committee, which is comprised of researchers from all of our partner universities, MWRD, and a range of other partners to just help us understand, is this working? Is the calibration set up what we need? What do we need to do to be confident that this data is actually good enough to share with the public? And so our 2020 goals, when we started 2020, were really about better data availability and just more consistency, higher accuracy and precision, which involved more sampling. And then this last three are really focused on how we communicate the data, specifically the limitations of it, like what is it, making sure people understand what they can and can't infer from the data that we're sharing, and then building a broader network of partners to make sure that we're getting this out as broadly as we can, and it is a project that's kind of owned by the full community. Calibration was a huge part of 2020 for us, doing more to really understand how the probes are set up and how close their readings are to what we're seeing when we take physical samples. So that was what our team was doing right up into March. With all of these partners, a really terrific group of folks that are part of this project, and it would not be possible without our community engagement partners who have all helped with the sampling, the critical funding I set up front from the Chicago Community Trust, Great Rivers program that makes this possible, our research partners and utilities who have really, the utilities, I can't say enough about how this would not be possible without their cooperation and support, getting us out onto the river, helping us install the probes, deinstall the probes, all the technical work it takes to get this done. But this is truly a large collaboration and a multi-sector collaboration, and Current's role has been to be the glue and sort of design it and again, get it into the world and move it forward. So speeding up, the real-time water quality monitoring indicators, this is a work in progress right now. These gauges that you see here are total placeholders, and we actually have an RFP on the street right now to do a visualization tool that will be a much better version of this, and also to do a refresh of the static website. So that, fortunately, that work can continue even in this remote world. We are planning for an eventual launch and public engagement, which we'll be really excited to do. This was supposed to be in May this year. That's obviously going to be pushed back just because we don't expect there's going to be large public events by Memorial Day and by the launch, and our calibration timeline's been pushed back. But we are really excited to get the community engaged, and these photos just give you a sense of all of the different sort of art projects and visualization dashboards. This kiosk on the left side of your screen is actually from New Zealand, but you can kind of get a sense for the roll up and the sense of real-time situational awareness of quality on the river and how that plays into a vibrant recreational season along the river in Chicago. Original timeline to have real-time data live by Memorial Day has been pushed back. We are hopeful still that it's possible that we might have real-time data live by July 31st. That relies on us being able to get back out into the field and continuing this important work of calibration and monitoring sometime early summer. And then we'll be doing more limited events to sort of roll out and communicate this. Worst case scenario, if you see at the bottom, it just sort of all bumps back by a year. We're still, there's a lot that we can do, again, to develop the website and the communication platform part of it. But until we can safely be back out in the river, this part of the project has to be on hold. Calling out our scientific advisors, a number of them on the phone today. I know Aaron Packman from Northwestern is here as well, and just a wonderful group of people that have helped us make sure that this is a sound, scientifically rigorous process, and really excited to sort of get others here on the phone and online engaged with us as we build this project going forward. This QR code, if you hold up your phone, will take you straight to the survey that we have live in the field right now. The H2 Now survey is a pre-live data point-in-time estimate of how people feel about the river and how they think about engaging with it. It's extremely basic. Our partners from the University of Illinois at Chicago helped us to design this and get it out into the field. We're hoping to get up to 1,000 respondents so that when we are up and running and have that near real-time data live, we'll be able to actually do a post-survey of those same people to see how, if at all, and we hope it will, how their view of the river will change after they've gotten a sense of how river quality is changing in more real-time ways. So we're excited about that. It's an important piece of our evaluation framework. If you're based in Chicago, we would love you to be a volunteer. You can help collect water samples and survey community members. So there's lots of ways to get engaged if you're local. If you're not, you can also just help follow and promote the project. We're active on Twitter and LinkedIn. Also, we invite anyone to talk to us about joining the H2 Now Chicago Advisory Committee. So this is a way that we have engaged, again, our global network of partners. It's not all local. We've been engaging virtually with the advisory committee since before it was necessary to do so. So feel free, if we're excited to have Gloss and others be part of this as we think about how this river quality monitoring and our growing understanding of what it means to do this kind of monitoring in river environments could also be expanded to lake environments and other places. So we're really excited to explore all of those ways of working forward. Current, again, we are focused on all of our environments in Chicago and Illinois, and so the Great Lakes are critical to us. We did not start there with our monitoring work, but we've developed an active database of promising novel water quality monitoring technologies, and we are really thrilled to be engaged in thinking about how to help make the Great Lakes smarter. So I will take a few questions if we have time and end it there.
I'm not sure if we do have time for questions. We are running a little bit late, but if there are questions in the chat box, I encourage you to go ahead and answer those in the chat as we get through the next presentation.
Great.
Thank you so much, Elena. It's a super cool project, and as a Chicago native, this just like warms my heart. I used to do a lot of canoeing on the Chicago River, and I'm fully aware of the information challenges, especially given certain weather conditions and that kind of thing. So this is so great. We're going to move on to Brian Stubbs at the Cleveland Water Alliance, but before we do that, I want to quickly do another poll just to get a sense of where everyone is. Maybe you're not actually located in the Great Lakes region, and that's okay. That's an interesting observation to glean from this poll as well. But there's a lot of, obviously the Great Lakes region is huge. People are doing work in a lot of different areas, and so we just want to get a sense of, for the audience, where folks are working. All right, I think we're getting close to, last people get your votes in. We want to end the webinar for you at a suitable happy hour time. So the fact that you vote, the faster you can get to an afternoon beverage. All right, so it looks like, I think as many people have voted that are going to, and the majority is all 5 Great Lakes. That's terrific. We've got a few people from outside of the region, it looks like, and a lot of people focused near Lake Michigan and Lake Erie. So that makes a lot of sense. And thank you so much, everyone, for answering the poll and letting us know where you're from. So I'm going to move now to Brian Stubbs, the Cleveland Water Alliance, who's going to talk to us more about the work they're doing around developing a smart Lake Erie. Go ahead, Brian.
Thank you, Kelly. Can you see my screen okay?
Yeah, you're good.
All right, great, thank you. Good conversation. So as Kelly mentioned, I'm the Executive Director of the Cleveland Water Alliance, a water innovation and technology cluster based in Cleveland, but really serving the entirety of the Lake Erie basin. And so there we go. And if you notice in the top right corner, and Elena mentioned this a little bit, we're built on a concept from an economic development term known as a cluster. And a cluster really is about, one, what sort of natural assets do you have in your local economy and how do you build those up? And it generally consists of a triple helix model of industry, research, and governmental agencies. So, for us in Cleveland, it starts with industry. And, on your screen there are just a few of our partners deeply into water, but all sorts of different ways that they're into water. So it's not just about, a lot of the conversation today, which is about monitoring and smart sensing. But, for us, it's all the way through to companies like Moen and Connecticut and Odie, which are working on smart homes and how water impacts that, all the way through to a company like Eaton that is working on, Industrial 4.0 and smart systems, and in particular around energy and water, et cetera. So we have over 300 companies just in Northeast Ohio that are within the blue economy or water economy space. So we start by building on that. Then comes our research partners, and this is a bit of our research partners, but I think what you'll notice here is, while Cleveland's in our name, it's not just our only playground, our only pool, as we like to use our water metaphors. But you'll see quite a few Research One institutions there, from Case Western, Ohio State, University of Michigan, all the way through to University of Windsor across border, and University at Buffalo in New York, as well as all throughout Ohio. So it really brings a broad collection into our innovation ecosystem. And then, of course, our governmental and NGO partners make up that third leg of the triple helix model. And that's a broad conversation. For us, it always starts with our utilities. And for us, that's not only our local utilities like Cleveland Water, Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer, but we're working a bit now with the Great Lakes Water Authority in Detroit, with Toledo, with Sandusky, with Buffalo System, et cetera. But then you also see some other both governmental and quasi-governmental agencies on there, like the Port and the Port of Cleveland. Our port in Cleveland is quite an economic development driver, dealing with a lot of the aggregate leading into our steel mills, but it also runs a line between here and Northern Europe for goods and products. At the federal level, of course, organizations and federal departments like NOAA, NASA, we have a growing relationship with the Department of Commerce and Commercial Services, and then all the way through to programs like SGLi, and then at the state level, the H2 Ohio program and our partners at the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, Office of Coastal Management, OEPA, and even Jobs Ohio. So when we talk, and you've heard others earlier talk about the innovation ecosystem, it's really about how do you get this entire system rowing the same way in the same direction. How do you get them to drive innovation and drive technology? And in particular, and I think somebody asked this question earlier about, how does this impact humans? So we're talking a lot about tech and all of that. On one hand, you can say, well, it's good to know there's not E. coli in the water, and that's something we want to warn people out. And of course, we're seeing less and less of it. CSOs and the work around CSOs continues to increase. Certainly in Cleveland, we'll be done with our work by 2032. But it brings up this great point on why we do what we're doing, and I think this slide and that first point really says it well. This is a significant job creator. When I came in, 5+ years ago to lead this organization, never had a full-time executive director. I built this on this hypothesis that you can commit to having cleaner water, and that commitment will also lead to growing and increasing gross regional product. And in our case, that has actually been proven to be more than a theory, and it's actually turned out to be true. So right now, just in Cuyahoga County, which is the county that Cleveland's based in, we're adding over 300 net new blue economy jobs annually. And we've had two different reports validate this. The first was funded through the U.S. Economic Development Administration and carried out by the Ohio Aerospace Institute. And the second was just completed by McKinsey & Company as part of a pro bono project they're doing here in Cleveland. What's really exciting to us is these jobs tend to be more inclusive, and we've made that a priority. Our Water Equity Task Force, in partnership with the U.S. Water Alliance, has just been a great partner for continuing and increasing the needs of that conversation and impact. But also, this is leading to good paying jobs. What these reports found out is, if you want a job, you want it to pay well, get into water. The jobs that we're creating are paying between $65K to $108K, and that ranges in anything from somebody with a certificate and associate degree at our local community colleges up to PhDs. And we're also seeing now a significant increase in R&D. We hear a lot of attention, both nationally and regionally, about things like biohealth, aerospace, advanced energy, and additive manufacturing. This work that this collective is taking on actually is adding more jobs than all of those in some cases, and in case of parts of Ohio combined. So this is why we're doing this. This is leading to cleaner water, more smart and connected innovation, growth for our cluster companies, but jobs ultimately, and good jobs, and jobs that blur that in a good way, that line between clean tech, blue tech, and even manufacturing in our case. So I just thought very quickly, and I know we're running short on time, a sampling of some of our programs, just to give you a little taste of how we've approached the Smart Lake work and Smart Lake Erie, which really, kind of kicked off this collaborative, in general. So obviously we're here today talking about Smart Lake Erie, and I'll get more into that here in a moment. But really this all comes back through programs like Erie Hack, our open water innovation programs. You'll see pictures on the right of our most recently concluded version from this last summer, where that picture on the right just shows $75K that we awarded to 3 new technologies. And what's really crucial here is not just awarding dollars to these companies, but to continue to accelerate their innovations, their technologies, get them off the ground, get them running, and potentially find them partners within our cluster network to take on their innovation, or to find them equity investment to actually grow it internally. So that's just been a dynamite program. The Great Lakes Biomimicry, we sponsor in partnership with the Ohio Department of Natural Resources Office of Coastal Management, and in one case Biohabitats, 2 biomimic PhD fellows through the University of Akron. One is just finishing up her work on coastal resiliency, and then the second one is just midway through her PhD, but it's just amazing work around materials and coastal resiliency. A very timely subject, just given high water marks on all the Great Lakes and what that's doing to eroding our coast, and looking at new, safer materials to help, keeps, in our case, in Ohio, in some cases, massive erosion of land that's encroaching upon actual structures. You'll see some programs here, such as H2 Ohio, which is Governor DeWine's just incredible program around, almost $90 million a year going to clean water innovation, clean water technology. If anybody wants to know more about that, let me know, but we're certainly helping them in a variety of ways, including a national look and international look at new phosphorus-based mitigation, innovation, and technologies. The Internet of H2O, I'll get into in a minute. The Great Lakes One Water Partnership is a $800,000 smart citizen science. And you'll notice this theme that a lot of our work actually supports not only Smart Lake Erie, but the Smart Great Lakes Initiative. We're bringing more data to bear, which is crucial in all of this. And it's not just these new, smart, inexpensive IoT-based systems. We love them. We're deploying them like crazy, but it's also smartening up other approaches such as smart citizen science. In this case, we're using an innovation developed out of one of our open innovation competitions for a handheld spectrometer. It costs $20 to 3D print, and it competes with a $1,300 Hawk nitrogen and phosphorus sensor. So, you know, a lot of good stuff there. I'm not even going to begin to getting into everything that we're doing, but I just want to give you a little flavor when we talk about this innovation ecosystem. It's really wide, it's really varied. It's not going to be just smart and connected systems on the open water. It's going to be smart pipes. It's going to be, you know, a variety of different topics, both with muni utility, all the way through to the home, all the way through to the open waters. So Smart Lake Erie, and I always love this shot showing our Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and the Great Lakes Science Center. We came about this, you know, four plus years ago from an honest place, and that is we have this regional challenge. Regional challenge is harmful algal blooms. We know that it's going to be billions of dollars of impact. One needs to only look at Toledo in 2014 being shut down for 2.5 days because of harmful algal blooms. Harmful algal blooms have a very nasty toxin in them called microcystin, and if you drink that, you will die. So not a good thing. Billions of dollars of impact. Luckily, our governor and our state, the state of Michigan and the province of Ontario, which I just love working with Canada on our work, came up with this goal to reduce nutrient, the leading cause of harmful algal blooms, by 40% in 2025. However, what we noticed here is insufficient data. We just didn't have all that much data to say, are we making progress? God, who knows? We'll go out and we'll do these occasional grab samples. You know, GLOS has been really kind to fund, you know, a few of our partners in getting some sensors, such as Cleveland Water, to start taking a look at nutrients. But really, we didn't have a great way of measuring progress. We didn't have a great way of measuring efficiency. And God forbid we have this conversation about ROI, or, you know, return on investment. You know, so this idea of like, wow, with data, we can actually have a better idea of where we should spend our dollars, where it's having the most adverse impact on humans, so we can go there first where we know we're going to have solid impact. So really, this conversation is where quite a few of us came together and said, all right, you know, we need to embrace technology, embrace this new kind of, whether some people call it internet, you know, 4.0 or you know, other things. So, you know, with that, everybody's like, one thing Kelly asked me is, you know, to talk about our perspective on building Smart Lake Erie, because a lot of our work's been in a great way being utilized by others. What works for us doesn't always work for everybody, but this is just our approach. You know, for us, this opportunity is around Smart Lake. And we call this a new breed of smart and connected infrastructure. And I think that's really key, and it's going to be really important as we talk about the pandemic recovery and about infrastructure. This has to be part of the conversation. And through this, we can also get in and cross those political boundaries. It's regional management. You know, what happens upstream impacts downstream. What happens in Detroit impacts us in Cleveland and impacts those in Toronto. So, you know, it's all one system. As we always say, political, or a watershed knows no political boundaries. You know, so we started looking and asking these questions about, you know, what could these opportunities look like? And this was early days, but, you know, hey, could we deliver predictive warnings? And Kelly's been leading that, GLOS has been leading that, and it's brought us in with a harmful algal bloom early warning system. I'm really fascinated actually right now with, we're having conversations on the wastewater side about, we think we can actually predict COVID-19 outbreaks through an early warning system developed in our wastewater systems. You know, that's the sort of thinking, the innovation and technology that we want to push forward on. This is both a rural and urban. You know, this is not just nutrients in the rural area. This is also, you know, and Cleveland's, you know, infamous for this, you know, legacy contaminants, PCBs, E. coli. We want to get into all of that. And then, of course, we see huge opportunities around edge of field, you know, and control nutrient runoff and deliver ROIs. How can we be ag's best friend as opposed to yelling and screaming at them? We think it's very, very important. So our path to a smart lake, you know, building momentum. So the first thing is, you know, we started launching these open innovation challenges. We took a team from NASA through our NASA Glenn Research Center around the entirety of Great Lakes. GLOS was part of that, and we started bringing both those who we knew in the water space with those in the technology space. And I always use this story because it's so true. The very first one of these we did was in Toledo. And it's not, Toledo's a good sized city, but not a huge city. And we had people in a room and started having this conversation. I realized, wow, these people have never met each other. So the people developing new technology and their incubator and their entrepreneurial kind of ecosystem had never once talked to their watershed people, to their water utility people. So it's like, oh, wow, huge opportunity to get people thinking and working together. And of course, these open innovations lead to some really cool solutions and technologies. So this led to what Kelly mentioned earlier, the Internet of H2O. We sometimes do these very specific innovation and open innovation challenges. And this is where we said, all right, there's something here around smart and connected systems. This was 3+ years ago. And so we did a partnership with Digital Sea here in Cleveland, US Ignite, and the National Science Foundation to put another innovation competition together, but in the Sandusky Bay, specifically around nutrient monitoring. Not only monitoring, but sensing the nutrients, trying different ways of working with different telemetry systems for getting that data off of these devices, looking at different ways to analyze these data, kind of push GLOS's system a little bit, make it a little bit more muscular, which they met that challenge, and actually deliver a set of tools that would be of value to our partners in Sandusky, be it ODNR, be it the city of Sandusky, another one of our partners. So as we put that together and we had these 5 solutions that were actually deployed in the Sandusky Bay, we said, let's bring together some thought leaders around this idea of smart and connected systems and smart Lake Erie. And that's, kind of was the aha eureka moment for us, where people came together and said, there's a there there, and we must do this collaboratively. So, to that, we now entered this phase for us of implementation. So we have ongoing regular stakeholder engagement. We are leveraging GLOS platform, the GLOS Have Early Warning system. We leverage anything that's available, basically. We'll take it. We've been able to leverage, as I mentioned, the Smart Citizen Science Grant. That's up to about $810,000. Now we've been able to get a lot of great industry attracted to this and putting money into it. AT&T, YSI, Xylem, Lemnotech, IOSite, who I know is on the call, Cisco, Valor Water, et cetera. And we tried all sorts of different fun telemetry sensors. And we've now started to develop this Smart Lake Erie joint venture with some of our corporate partners. And I think that's really key here. It's fine to talk about this stuff within a bubble, but if you're not engaging industry and getting and leveraging them to bring in their assets, ultimately, we have to figure out how this is going to live financially and start developing those financial models. So that's something we've really spent a lot of time and helping, not only our partners, but, the whole entire GLOS system on. And then, through this, we've been able to start to grow R&D. We have NSF submissions in right now on Smart Lake Erie and a Smart Lake Planning Grant. We've been able to leverage other dollars, which I'll get into a second, but it's really about this pathway from a small little innovation competition that's led to something much broader and bigger. As we gotten broader and bigger and leveraged other work going on, and again, I'm gonna reference the harmful algal bloom early warning system and the work through Ohio State University and Ohio Sea Grant has really allowed us to actually take this a step further and start talking more to ports, to tourism boards, water-enabled industries, impacted cities, et cetera. The whole point here is we're all part of this and we all need to help fund it, and we all need to figure out what is the value, what is the equation for these. Would somebody in Sandusky like Cedar Fair have value in paying and supporting this? And the short answer is, yeah, they would. This actually impacts their bottom line as the world's roller coaster capital, which has a lot of water assets, et cetera. So I love this slide because this was taken, and Kelly, you're right there next to David, but for some reason my thing cut it off, so don't be mad at me. But the work at the Internet of H2O in Sandusky a few years ago, this is just a sampling of the group we put together. There's Case Western, there's the head of NASA's economic development, the head of the utility department in Sandusky, there's Jess and Chris from YSI and Xylem, Dave Rankin from the Great Lakes Protection Fund. And on the right is, we actually had them drawing a lot of what would a smart lake look like. And we had everybody in these working groups, and everybody was engaged. It was great. It was a lot of fun. But we took that, which was a risk for us, and saying, we're going to bring people together and ask them this question and say, what does it look like if we actually create some sort of solutions architecture? Now, GLOS has taken a lot of this, and we're happy for that, but this was the actual piece that went into our NSF submission. So you can go from people drawing on a map of the lake into actual technology and innovation and how it works and where the values are. So, with that, just some examples of what we have on the ground today and how this has been growing since that meeting 3 years ago. So, the first is, here's one of our favorite buoys. This one's out by Cleveland's water intake system. And this photo comes courtesy of Cleveland Water. It just shows they're using these satellites, they're using buoys, they're using sondes, all sorts of different instruments in order to get data near real time that allows them to understand what's coming at them, that allows them to better operate their utility. Here's just one example of one of the parameter of sensors that would be in one of those buoys. In this case, we're looking at pH, temperature, conductivity, chlorophyll, DO, et cetera. These can be inputted with different sensors into them. Blue and green algae, obviously a big one, but I want people to understand that there's a lot of equipment inside these. It's just not fun to look at and fun to boat around, but oh, and I should mention also that you can text these buoys and they will text you back all of this real-time parameter information. So go to the GLOS site and pick a buoy and figure out if that one has the text capabilities. It's a lot of fun. We're now starting to look at what we need that's next. In this case, we're always thinking, what if? So, contaminants from spills, manganese is a huge deal for us in Cleveland, as well as other things. So, starting to think through what do we need in terms of technology innovation, what's next in the pipeline. So we're real excited about a new deployment. And this is a smart sensing pilot in partnership with Ohio Department of Natural Resources and the Old Woman Creek estuary. We really like this one because somebody, I think, had a question about this earlier, which is, since this is a federal kind of designated area, it has a lot of really deeply expensive monitoring equipment in it. But what we're bringing in partnership with one of our cluster organizations, in this case, Limnotech, is a really cost-effective smart sensor network. In this case, it's going to concentrate initially on nutrients, on phosphorus and nitrogen. But this is going to start to give us an indicator of, one, will this next generation equipment, which is a lot less expensive, get us near the same level of input as the equipment that's 10 times, in some cases more than 10 times as expensive. And our short answer is we think it's going to be yes, but ask me in 90 days, assuming we can get the restrictions and getting out there in terms of the pandemic and start deploying. But this is going to be a pretty fun project. On the left of your screen is a technology that was part of the Internet H2O. This is a new lab through Green Eyes. So we in my world often talk about wet labs in a can. In some cases, some of the things that we're looking at still require wet chemistry, and it's very expensive to do. In this case, this is a solution that's about 5% of the cost of the current NOAA-supported wet labs in a can. That's, again, looking at nitrogen, phosphorus. So we're going to be deploying a lot of fun new technology, a lot of new innovation with a lot of lower cost, low-tech innovation, but with a lot of AI and analytics behind us to say, can we develop the protocols? In our case, what we care about is for the state of Ohio to know this $90 million a year that they're spending for H2 Ohio. Are we giving them the information so they can make the best decisions as possible? And when they're not, get them that information so they can, all the way through to developing early warning systems for other areas. So, given that, that's just a little bit into our world of how we've started developing the Smart Lake Erie and the Smart Lake concept. I always love this photo. Again, courtesy of Cleveland Water. We have developed a series called the Lonely Buoy series, and if you go to Twitter, you also find a couple of the buoys have their own Twitter account. I believe 2 yellow buoys is one of the big ones. So anyway, have fun with these. But look, I'm happy to answer any and all questions. This is a something that we need to get broader investment on. I think we're proving the value of it. We have to support our partners who are a conduit for that funding, like the Great Lakes Observing System. It's going to be crucial. It's going to be key. I think somebody mentioned a question earlier, which we deeply care about, and that is, standards. We're certainly working with NIST. We've been working with the NIST, supercluster program for about 5 years. That we need to have standards. I love what GLOS is pushing with a couple of our sensor partners about how we can actually embed certain standards into the chips before they even ship, just making the whole process easier. So with that, I know we're short on time. Kelly, I'm going to toss it back to you and just say thank you very much. This is fantastic, and we hope this continues to build in a way that you and I probably thought over a cocktail 3 years ago.
Yeah, no kidding. Brian. Well, I just want to, again, thank our presenters today. I think this has been really, nice, and hopefully everyone else is feeling inspired listening to these other examples of, oops, sorry, I'm trying to share my screen and talk to you at the time, so clearly I can't do both. Let me just focus myself. Okay. There we go. Can everyone see my slide? Yes. Okay. So, I hope getting a sense of, the different types of activities that are happening, at a very high level, like the type of stuff that we're doing at GLOS, lake scale, like what Brian and the Cleveland Water Alliance are doing, or, addressing a specific local information need, like what Elena and Current are working on for the Chicago River. These are all examples, all great examples of ways that the work that we're doing can contribute to helping us realize smart Great Lakes, and the type of activities we want to continue to support and elevate through the Smart Great Lakes initiative. So I'm going to very quickly go through, sort of wrap up the next steps. We're going to try to do some breakout sessions at the end, but I don't think we're going to have time to do that. So let me just get through it. So if you're interested in participating and want to know how, here are some thoughts on that. So obviously, we want to encourage folks who are, carrying out these projects to continue doing that and connect with us so we can figure out, what are some ways that we can, like I said, support and elevate the work that you're doing. Perhaps you're filling a specific role within this data to information supply chain, and we certainly value that and want to make sure that we can continue to support those activities. And if you're a user of the information, your feedback is really helpful for us to understand how we can make sure that the projects we're working on are as effective as they can possibly be. But probably the most straightforward deliverable that we're trying to achieve here in the short term is the development of a common strategy document, which I sort of alluded to in my earlier presentation. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that document, but I just want to also kind of highlight that we sort of see that there can be multiple levels of engagement for people, whether you're a general partner who's participating in meetings, workshops, projects, or writing teams. Perhaps sort of like a next level of commitment would be a steering committee level, which would include committing to help with the development of the strategy document, which I'm going to talk about, and really serving as advisors to the Smart Great Lakes Initiative to help us prioritize our activities moving forward. And then finally, sort of a smaller core group of folks who are really committed to taking on that leadership role and those responsibilities that can help make sure the initiative is successful. So those are the three levels of engagement that we're looking to get your involvement in. If you look at the GLOS strategic plan, we do have a timeline that we have developed sort of internally for how we would like to see, at a high level, this initiative progressing. And towards the end, it's intentionally vague because we really want the Smart Great Lakes Initiative to be directed in a more collaborative manner. But we did identify the development of this common strategy document as one of the early deliverables that we would be working to support. Now, when I say common strategy document, I think I also mentioned earlier that I was a bit inspired by the Great Lakes Regional Collaboration Strategy, which was the precursor to GLRI. I meant that very literally. I was literally inspired by that document and referred to it really as a point, a reference point for developing a sort of outline for how we might craft our own common strategy document around Smart Great Lakes. And I think the intention here is really to work together to communicate and develop a common vision for Smart Great Lakes. Obviously GLOS described what we see as being Smart Great Lakes in our strategic plan, but we really want to make sure, like in an active way, we're convening a large consortium of partners to contribute to this vision. And I think some outcomes of this exercise would be to identify opportunities for collaborative or cooperative projects, and really maybe, what we all kind of need, and maybe what will fundamentally be the motivation for everyone, which is to collectively promote increased investment in things like monitoring open data and technology innovations, right? So this is something that we can take to funders, we can take to Congress and say, these are our priorities. This is why we need more investment in the Great Lakes region. As a way to tackle the development of this document, we've identified 3 high-level topic areas that we see being best served through the Smart Great Lakes framework. And the topic areas certainly overlap, but they can also be advanced independently in certain ways. So we see partners in the initiative fitting into 1 or more topic areas: science and innovation, data and information, management and policy. And the steering committee can kind of help provide review, advice, and guidance for how the work under each topic area would be best coordinated or supported by the larger initiative. The document itself, again, taking point of reference from the Regional Collaboration Strategy, that document was sort of organized in this way where each topic area had a problem statement, goals and milestones, recommendations with a rationale and costs. And I see that we could do the exact same format essentially for these 3 topic areas. Although I do want to sort of explicitly include existing efforts as part of that exercise, again, to help acknowledge all the good work that's happening in the region already. And just to help, I'm not going to do this for each topic area, but just to help give you a sense of like, what does that even look like? Again, I kind of ballparked this really quickly myself, but the intention here is that a larger group of people would provide input to developing this problem statement. But just as an example, let's say for the topic of science and innovation, what is the problem statement? What is keeping the Great Lakes from being smart in a way that is addressed by science and innovation? And so, we have the need to sustain, expand, and upgrade existing monitoring programs and foster development and adoption of innovation in science and technology. That could be an example of a problem statement. We could acknowledge existing efforts or potential efforts, like all of the various monitoring programs that exist right now. The work that Brian's doing with Cleveland Water Lines around Smart Lake Erie, or an effort like Lakebed 2030, which is an effort to try to do comprehensive bathymetric mapping of the Great Lakes by 2030. Those are the types of activities that could be acknowledged in this. And then maybe as we're working together to craft this problem statement, we identify some priorities, such as the need for year-round monitoring technologies in the Great Lakes. We do have a terrible blind spot during winter months when we're not able to do real-time monitoring. So maybe that's something that emerges as a priority that the regional partners can get around. And so I've done this for each of the other topic areas, but I'm not going to get into it for the sake of time. Just to give you a sense of our timeline for developing this document, it is a bit ambitious, especially given a lot of the COVID-19 related delays. But we are going to be issuing a request for information next month with responses due in June. And this RFI will be used to inform not only the common strategy document, but also GLOS's next 5-year funding proposal to NOAA. Into the summer and fall, we'll be working to develop like a rough draft document based on all the existing literature that exists out there already, as well as the input that we've gathered through this request for information process. We kind of acknowledge it's very hard to get people to write like a document like this from scratch. So we want to have like a straw man or a draft ready for people to react to. And we'll seek help from writing teams over the fall and winter to review, edit, and refine those drafts. And so, even though we might not have a final document exactly ready by Great Lakes Day next March, we do expect to have a finished document that we can present to congressional offices in DC or related government and program partners in Ottawa, for instance, and any other possible funders who can help advance some or many aspects of this common strategy document. And the intention is to have that by next year. And so we're hopeful also that there may be some low-hanging fruit type projects that will emerge also through this RFI process, and intend to also issue some Smart Great Lakes mini grants that will be available to fund projects underway in 2021. So if you're interested in participating, I just want to share Katie Rousseau's contact information. She is our Smart Great Lakes liaison, and she's helping us, really make sure that this maintains momentum and that there's, staff support for all of this work. And then because we are, I think, officially on time, I'm just going to kind of wrap up now. We did have some breakout questions for you guys. I do want to encourage you to think about how you might contribute to this common strategy document, what you think some of the major issues or challenges are that could help us characterize these problem statements, and maybe share some examples of existing efforts that of that can contribute to us making the Great Lakes smarter. And then we do have one final polling question, which is, I think, is what we're going to leave you with. If we can put up the final poll, which is, how engaged do you want to become in the Smart Great Lakes Initiative? And thank you, the majority of folks, for still staying on with us, even though we've gone a little bit over. I appreciate it. As we're waiting for those poll results to come in, I'll just say a little reminder that the webinar is being recorded and will be made available along with any Q&A from the chat along with the webinar on the GLOS website after the fact. Katie's going to send out a survey to all the attendees tomorrow, Wednesday, asking about your level of participation and also these breakout questions that we were not able to get to. So encourage you to provide your input in that survey tomorrow when you get that email. I hope that you'll keep an eye out for the request for information that's being posted next month, and get engaged in future opportunities that we have for the Smart Great Lakes Initiative. Thank you guys for all your time and interest. It looks like we're about 80% voted, so we'll wrap it up. So the majority of you are interested in being kept up to date on progress. That's great. We will definitely make sure that you guys are all updated and engaged as we move forward. And we'll follow up with those of the other of you, or the rest of you who have indicated other levels of engagement offline. So I hope everyone has a safe and healthy summer. Take care, and thanks again for your time this afternoon. Bye.